Bounded set. Before we talk about bounded set, we first talk about what we call upper bound and lower bound, because these definitions depend on bounded set. We say that let S be a bounded set of real number R. Then S is said to be bounded above, or we say that it has an upper bound. If there exists a number inside real number, which is M, such that any element we pick inside S is less than M. So this M is what we call an upper bound. And let me explain what this thing is talking about. They say that an upper bound, that is, if you have a set S here now, let's say the set S has all this A, B, C, D. If you say that an upper bound, if you pick any element inside this place, inside this set, this is A, B, C, any of these, they must always be less than or equal to the one certain element in this place. Let's say the last one here. So that number is the upper bound. That is what the definition is saying. No matter number we pick in this place, no matter element you pick in this place, it will always be less than that M. The M2 is inside the X. It will always be less than it. So that is what we call an upper bound. Another one is the lower bound. So we have our lower bound here. So we say that a subset X of real number just like this is a lower, it has said to be bounded below, or we say that it has a lower bound. If there is this small number M, if there is this small M in R, such that M is less than or equal to X. So it's just like the opposite of this. You know, in our example then, we say that if you pick any element here, it will be less than or equal to the M we are talking about. But in case of lower bound, any element we pick here will always be greater. So that means the lower bound will be somewhere in this place. It will be somewhere below here. So if a set has it, then we say that it has a lower bound. So from that place, we can now define our bounded set. So we cannot say that a set that has this upper and lower bound is said to be a bounded set. So let's take the example. Let's take the definition. So that will lead us to the definition of a bounded set. We say that a set is bounded if it is bounded above and bounded below. So that is if it has upper bound and it has lower bound. So we now write it mathematically like this. If there exists small m and big M, the small m is representing the lower bound. This is representing the upper bound. Because by the time we merge these two together, this and this, M is less than or equal to S, S is less than or equal to M, we are going to have this. So this is the definition of bounded set. So we cannot generalize the definition here and say that a set S is bounded if there exists a number M, capital letter M, inside this real number, such that minus M is less than or equal to X is less than or equal to M, or simply by our absolute value, we can merge it and write it like this. So we should take note, this is how we'll be defining a bounded set now. So what is there is same thing as this definition. Here, we are only using small m. Here we use minus capital letter M. So we can merge it together and define a bounded set like this. So let's take an example. Our example 1, any finite subset of R is bounded. So for instance, if we consider, let's say S is minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on like that. This is a finite set and it's still subset of a real number. So from this place now, we will say that S is such that if you want to write it in a set beta notation form, so this is minus 2 is less than or equal to X, is less than or equal to 3. So S is an integer. So from this place now, we will see that our small m is minus 2 and our big M is 3. So this is the lower band. The lower band is -2, while the upper band is 3. So in that case, it's banded because it has a lower band of -2 and it has an upper band of 3. So another example, the set of natural number, this natural number is banded below only because here now, if as it's going, we don't know the end. So we don't know the upper band now. So we don't know the last one. We can only see the lower one. We can say that M is 1. So it has a lower band. So that means we see that it's banded below. The set of natural number is banded below. And if you consider set of integer, so set of integer is not banded because here we don't know the lower band. We don't know the lowest one. And we don't know the highest one here. So it's just going. So in that case, it has no lower band and upper band. So we see that it's not banded. So let's consider another example. Is this set banded? Set A is equal to 1 over n such that n is a natural number. So we want to show whether it's banded. We want to verify whether it's banded or not. So for our n to be equal to 1, this will be 1. When n is 2, that will be 1 over 2. When n is 3, 1 over 3, like that. But you observe that as this thing is going, it started from 1. 1 is greater than this, is greater than this. So you observe that it is reducing like that. It is reducing. At the end of the day, the limit point will just be 0. The final point will be 0. So in that case, we say that m is 0, small m is 0. It has a lower band of 0 because 0 will be the low. As it's going now, it's reducing. There will be a time that it will not reduce again. It will get to 0 and it will stop because it has to be positive numbers. So from that place, I can say that capital M is 1. So it is banded below by 0 and is banded above by 1. 1 is the highest point there. So in that case, this set is banded. That this set A is banded because it's banded above and it's also banded below. So if you look at this, so if you consider set this set, let's say we have set 2n plus 1. So n is 1, 2, and so on like that. So we want to verify whether it is banded or not. So it's not that hard. You only need to look for when n is 1. You don't need to write out this set. So if you put n to be 1 there, so that should be 1 over 3. If you continue like that, you are going to get all this. So you see that this is the lowest one because 2 over 5 is more than this. So we don't know where it's going. It's just increasing, keep on increasing. So in that case, we can see that small m is 1 over 3. So that is this set is banded below. So it's banded below only. So it's not banded above. So that is that about the banded set. So another important one is infimum and supremum. So they can't talk about banded set without talking about infimum and supremum. And since we have talked about upper band, then we have to talk about all these two. So let's take the definition. So we have the definition of infimum here. Since we have talked about lower band, so here we say that infimum m is called a number m is called an infimum of a set S if it is the highest among the numbers that are banded below. So if you have all the numbers that are banded below, just like a lower band too, lower band, so the highest of all of them is what we call infimum. So an infimum is also, we also call it greatest lower bound. So and we denote infimum as this INF inf S, or we just write GLB, greatest lower bound. So it's the highest among all the numbers that are banded below. So another one is the supremum. When we talk of supremum now, so the lowest number among the numbers that are banded above is called supremum, or we call it least upper bound. When we are talking about upper bound, the numbers that are banded above are the upper bounds. So the lowest of all the upper bounds is what we call supremum, or we call it least upper bound. So we write supremum as this, or just write LUB. So that is supremum. So in that case, I can just say that if a number has a supremum, so if a set has infimum, then I can write it as M will be less than or equal to S for every S belonging to this. And if it is supremum, just like the upper bound too, so I can say that S is less than or equal to capital M for every S belonging to S, because all these numbers will be less than M, because M is still an upper bound. So it's just that it's the lowest of all the upper bound. So any upper bound like this, any set we pick inside the S will be less than it. So let's take example. Consider this set. So in this case, the infimum is 1 here, while the supremum is let's write it like this. Supremum is 1, while the supremum of this set is 11. So it's just like the upper bound and the lower bound. So we have another example here. We want to find the supremum and the infimum of this set. So the first thing is we need to write out this set. S is greater than 7. So this will be 7, 8, and so on. Which thing in an interval, we can write it like this: 7, infinity. So this one, our infimum of S is 7. S is greater than 7. We start from 8, 9, and so on. So the infimum of the set is 7, and then supremum is infinity. So this supremum is infinity. We don't need to write it. It simply means does not exist. So that's the meaning of the supremum does not exist. So it has only infimum, which is 7. But you observe here that the infimum is 7, but it does not belong to this set. So it happens. So the supremum may not belong to the set, while the infimum too may not belong to the set. So as you can see here, that the infimum is 7, but it has no supremum because there's no end there. Infimum is 7. So 7 is the least number among the numbers that are banded below. So 7 is there, although 7 is not inside the set, but 7 is the infimum. So let's take another example. Here, we want to find the supremum and infimum of this set. So the first thing is we need to rewrite the set in a good form. Now this thing here means S squared minus, if I bring 2 in, normally these 2 I can write it as this. This is less than 0 for every S belongs to Q. So this thing will be equal to S minus root 2, S plus root 2 is less than 0. So this is theory of inequality. So I don't need to dwell more on this. So finally this should give me minus root 2 is less than S is less than root 2. So and we know that S is a subset of real number. So in that case, since we have something of this nature, so I can say that the infimum of S will be minus root 2, and the supremum of S will be equal to root 2. So because it has lower bound here, so the infimum is minus 2. But normally these sets are not there, because in an open set, these numbers are not inside this set. If you say that we should, because it is strictly greater and strictly less, but they are the infimum and the supremum. So the infimum is this, while the supremum is that. So you consider this, if you consider this set 1 over n, so this is left as exercise. So we want to find the supremum and the infimum. So that is that about that. So the next thing now is that we need to consider another important theorem. So the last part is the completeness axiom. So this is the theorem we are talking about. The theorem says that completeness axiom, or we call it continuum axiom, states that every non-empty subset of a real number which is bounded above or below has a supremum or infimum in it. What that means is that what this axiom states is that if a set is bounded above, then it must have supremum, and if it's bounded below, it must have infimum. So that will lead us to the following theorems. Now the theorem: let A and B be bounded subset of real number S such that A is a subset of B, then infimum of B will be less than or equal to infimum of A and this. So if A is bounded, if A and B are bounded, definitely they'll be bounded above and bounded below. So there will exist infimum and supremum by this complement of axiom. So we want to prove the first one. So let us now prove the theorem. So we say that A and B are bounded. So since both are bounded, so there must exist, since they are bounded below, since they are bounded, they must bounded above and bounded below. And since they are bounded below, let me write it, since A and B are bounded below, then by completeness axiom, they must both have infimum and supremum. So let me start by saying, let our infimum of B be alpha, because we are dealing with B now. So let me say that let alpha be infimum of B. So then by definition there is M such that since it's infimum, so we have used alpha for it. So there's X such that alpha will be greater than, since it's infimum, S is greater than or equal to alpha for all S belonging to B. So we can also write it like this: S is greater than or equal to alpha for all S belong to A. Why? Because A is a subset of B by the theorem. The theorem says A is a subset of B. Now, what we are now saying here is that what we want to bring out here is this: A, this alpha is the least upper bound of A, of this one. The least, definitely it will be around the lowest here, but since this one is less than this, then it will be the upper one here. Although it's the lower one here, but it will be the upper one here. So in that case, we can say that it's the lower bound of this one. So the lower infimum means the lowest. So in that case, I can say that is the upper band, the lower band, because infimum is still lower than the lower band. So in that case, I can write like this. So we can write like this: since S belongs to A and B, just like we have written it here, and we know that A is a subset of B, definitely S will belong to A, which is a subset of B. So we have said here that A is a lower, the alpha is a lower band of A. So that simply means that the infimum of A will just be greater than or equal to the alpha by the definition of lower band, to be greater than or equal to the alpha. But what's our alpha? Alpha is an infimum of B. So which implies infimum of A is greater than this infimum of B, which we can say that infimum of B is less than or equal to infimum of A. So, and that completes our first proof. So we want to prove the second one. So the second proof. So I'll still start by following the idea of the first proof. So we'll start by saying, let's use beta to be supremum of B. So we want to use beta to be supremum of B. So then by definition, we know that S will be less than or equal to beta for every S belongs to B, also for every S belongs to A. And we know, so this will imply that S belongs to A, which is a subset of B. Now, what we said there is that B is a supremum. This beta is a supremum of this B. Supremum means it's of the lowest part of the upper band there. So definitely it will be an upper band in this one. So that is, the lowest of this one must be the highest of this. And upper band is greater than the supremum, although they are both upper band, but supremum is the least of all the upper band. So the upper band of this one will always be, the supremum of this one, supremum means the lowest of the upper band, it will be the upper band of this. So we cannot say that therefore this beta is the upper band of A. So it's an upper band for A. What that simply means is that the supremum of A will still be less than or equal to this beta, because beta is an upper band. Why do we use less than or equal to? Because supremum will always be less than an upper band. It's only supremum for A. Sorry, it's only supremum for B. So it will be, supremum of A will be less than that. So this implies that supremum of A is less than beta, and our beta is supremum of B, and that completes the proof. So the third one is very easy. We know that for any set, infimum will always be less than or equal to the supremum. So if you can merge these two together, then theorem A and theorem B, if you merge the two theorems together, we are there. This is it. Infimum of A is less than infimum of B. Sorry, infimum of B is less than infimum of A, but infimum of A will always be less than or equal to supremum of A. Infimum is lower than the supremum. We have known that. So merging it together, it will result to this one. So let's take another theorem. Continue the theorem in our next video. Because of the size of the video, let's consider the following the other properties in our next video.